Yo, what is going on, guys? I'm coming at you today with a black blocker deck profile featuring War Greymon, Craniamon, and just a lot of other powerful black Digimon. So I played this in the Digibros Weekly Locals. They've got a tournament going on, webcam tournament going on, basically every week. So if you do ever want to join those, I'll have the links in the description for their Discord and their channel and stuff. So shout out to them. But yeah, it was a very fun event. And I played this as a 5 rounds. I want to say 20, 30 something people. I went X2, so I did actually end up scrubbing out. But I believe that was due to my fault, not necessarily the deck. The deck, despite being a rogue deck and despite being maybe not the best deck in the meta, it is definitely a solid contender. And I'll go through my matchups and everything after we go through the deck list. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. So, starting off with the rookies, I am playing 4 copies of Toy Agumon. Toy Agumon is the heart and soul of the inherited effects. He's really what you want to see on all of your guys because giving that reboot effect is just super powerful. Being able to unsuspend during your opponent's unsuspend phase lets you get around, your own Digimon getting attacked, as well as lets you attack with your blockers and then being able to block with them during your own turn. So then, for the other guys, we've got 4 copies of Gotsumon. Gotsumon is super good because he is, of course, a blocker. So pair this with something like Tai, and this guy can become 4, even 5,000 times. And just off of a 3 cost is very, very powerful. So it allows you to just get extra blockers on field. So definitely a staple there. And then now for this guy, I think he's a little bit underrated. I'm playing 3 copies of Chumon. Chumon is very solid because he prevents your opponent from gaining memory without the use of a tamer. So basically they have to use a tamer, otherwise they can't gain memory. So it shuts down things like Hammer Spark, things like a Biomon, the red Biomon where you swing and it deletes itself and then you draw a card, or not draw a card, you gain a memory. As well as things like Puppetmon. I played against a lot of decks that utilize these strategies. I guess around Argomon level 2 as well, when their stuff becomes unsuspended during the unsuspend phase. They usually gain a memory with the Argomon, but this completely shuts that down. So it lets you play the memory game with your opponent, and it really lets you get around all of those effects. I basically came in clutch every single matchup, and I don't think a lot of people are trying to play around memory chokers, because the only other one I saw was Terriermon being played in a green deck. So that's pretty sweet. I would definitely recommend you playing Chumon, especially because there's not too many super powerful black rookies. And then the other rest of the rookies round off the count at 14 is Hagurumon, just a cheap option to play. So then for the champions, I am playing 4 copies of Gardramon. Gardramon is your champion blocker. He is 7,000, which is super powerful. The only downside being he can't actually attack you. Now, you're usually not attacking with him, but I found myself in a lot of situations where I had Gardramon on field and my opponent, let's say I had 3 Digimon on field and my opponent only had 2 security, so I could go for a game if he was actually able to attack. So that is definitely a downside, but 7,000 is just too strong not to play. This basically forces your opponent to have to play level 6s in order to get around this guy. So he's super powerful. And now the other champions, I'm playing 3 copies of Greymon. Greymon is really powerful because he gives all of your Digimon with reboot jamming. So pair that with a Toy Agumon, or if you're not going the inherited route, if you have something like Metal Greymon or War Greymon who just already inherently have reboot, Greymon is very powerful, being able to swing a security. I played against a lot of decks with very powerful Digimon series mons, 12,000 DP, Omnimons are 15,000, so being able to swing without worrying about you guys dying is really nice. Now, the only reason I'm playing 3 instead of 4 is purely space reasons. There were a couple other non-Digimon cards I wanted to fit in here, and I felt like he was really the only one I would want to cut out of the champions. The other champions I'm playing are 2 copies of Numemon, as well as 2 copies of Tankmon. Both are just solid options for 1 cost Digivolutions. Now, Numemon, I'm playing a 2-2 spread because Numemon is really good to play, whereas Tankmon is not. But if you are running up against something like Omnimon Alter S, which is pretty prominent in the meta, Tankmon's nice because he's actually 6,000, so that gets around that. So that is the champion lineup sitting at 11. And then now for the ultimates, I am playing 4 copies of Metal Greymon. Metal Greymon is really good because he allows you to get, well, first of all, he has reboot, so it's pretty nice being able to Digivolve him, maybe swing over something that your opponent had on the field. Not only that, but his Heronic effect gives you security attack +1 for reboot. So if you have the Toy Agumon underneath one of your guys, or if you have War Greymon on the field, being able to push very quickly with the Metal Greymon, getting 2 checks every single time is super nice. And then I'm also playing 4 copies of Andromon. Andromon is very surprisingly better than I expected. The only thing he does is that he's a blocker, 7,000 blocker, level 5, of course. Now, the great thing about him is, of course, he doesn't actually have that -2 memory when he is attacking. So you can actually attack with him, and then if you do have a Toy Agumon under him, you know, that'll be the reboot effect, and then you'll just become active during your opponent's active phase. So that's pretty nice, gets around that. So I like this ultimate lineup. So far, there's nothing really in this deck that I would change. I thought this lineup was fine. The only times I did actually end up losing in the tournament were because I didn't actually draw either of these guys. So I had a weird spread in my hand, like of rookies and megas, but no ultimates. So it might be worth considering playing more ultimates, just because this deck isn't extremely consistent. You don't really have a lot of ways to constantly draw and search through your deck. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, for the other cards, for the level 6s, I am playing 3 copies of War Greymon. Now, War Greymon is super powerful because, first of all, he is a 11,000 blocker who has reboot, so you can, you know, swing during your turn and then unsuspend him during your opponent's active phase. So that's really nice. Now, the only reason I'm playing 3, if you guys thought this was weird, is because I only have 3. But if I had 4, I would probably take out this Machinedramon and play a 4th copy of War Greymon. War Greymon, can't say enough good things about him. Machinedramon is okay. He has an on-play effect where whenever you play him, you get to de-digivolve 2 opponents' Digimon by 2. So that can be pretty good. The only thing is that he's a 12 cost, so that really sucks. And if you're digivolving him, he's just a worse version of War Greymon who doesn't have reboot, right? He's 11,000 blocker without reboot. So Machinedramon was okay. I would probably cut this if you do happen to have a playset of War Greymon. Now, the other level 6s I am playing 2 copies of Craniamon. Craniamon is... Now, this might seem weird, okay? So the reason I'm playing 2 is because I am actually playing level 7s in this build. So Craniamon is a great card. He's 4 to digivolve. His effect is he protects all blockers on your side of the field, including himself, from being deleted by card effects. So that includes any of these guys or any of your, maybe your Andromon or your Gardramon or anything like that. So very, very powerful. And this came in clutch against certain matchups. When I was playing Red, again, Red is a very dominant deck. They basically can't use Gaia Force. This also gets around Omnimon Ultra S to an extent. The only thing is first of all, he's a 4, so you really don't want to have to go like Craniamon just to climb up into a level 7, because that's like 10 memory right there, and you really want to keep him on field as much as possible because of his protection effects. You don't want to digivolve him into a 7 typically. Like that's where these guys come in. So 2 worked out fine, especially because Craniamon is dead versus any deck that doesn't have to do with deleting. So my matchups today, I played against All-Force Veedramon. This guy does nothing against that. I played against Ceresmon, does nothing. Shine Greymon does 0. And the only deck where this guy actually came in clutch was against Omnimon Red, got around Gaia Force, Omnimon Ultra, stuff like that. But I think 2 is fine, especially for this version of the deck. But yeah, so just 2 Craniamon, and then now the spicy card that no one expected, I am playing 2 copies of Blitz Greymon. Blitz Greymon is an absolute monster of a card, very offensive card, allows you to de-digivolve something by 2, and then it also has Piercing, so that's really good. 12,000 Piercing is very, very powerful. So you can digivolve on top of a red or a black, hence like every ultimate in this deck works with it, and no one really expected this. Maybe people just don't expect this in a non-Omnimon red deck. Like, this is a black blocker deck, so maybe people don't expect this as much, but it was very, very powerful where I could, de-digivolve something, swing over something and, hit them for a security card, or even get rid of a blocker by de-digivolving and swing for game. So this was fantastic throughout the whole tournament. When I did draw, I mean, I'm only playing 2 copies, but the main guy you want to see is War Greymon. But ultimately, I did really like this lineup of level 6s. Now, getting into the level 7s, I am playing 2 copies of Millenniumon and 1 copy of Omnimon Ultra S. Now, again, this ratio is only because these are the cards I own. I only own 1 Ultra S, so if I had more of him, probably play more of him. Ultra S is a ridiculous card. So I thought this worked out very well, especially because only 2 Millenniumon because you don't want to, you can't Digivolve him with this. So it's really with these guys up here. And then this checks a lot of cards in the meta. This allows you to return anything on the field to the bottom of the deck, and then it also protects itself from dying. If it dies, it gets to come back if it does have Digivolution materials, which it basically always will. And then Ultra S, I don't even need to explain. This guy can wipe entire fields. Every single time I resolve this, I won that game. So this card is absolutely bonkers, and hence why I think this deck is able to compete. Now, I'm not gonna lie, if you cut the level 7s, because I do understand these cards are quite expensive, this deck is definitely still viable. It's definitely still good, but for like maximum power, you really do need the Ultra. This guy makes any black deck viable just because of how powerful he is single-handedly. Especially if I was playing like 4 copies of him, I think that would be a little bit ridiculous. So that's my reasoning, and those are my card choices. So that is it for the Digimon. The only other cards I am playing are 3 copies of Tai Kamiya, as well as 2 copies of Joe Kido, and 1 copy of Infinity Cannon. I like this lineup. I probably wouldn't change this. 3 Tai because you really do need your memory in this deck. This deck is very memory inefficient, and that goes with Joe too. Joe allows you to gain a memory every single time you start your turn. You have a blocker on field, so that's pretty nice. I really do like this lineup. And then the 1 Infinity Cannon came in clutch. You might argue play a couple more of this. I might take out the Machine Dramon, play another copy of Infinity Cannon, but basically your only offensive option card at this point. So yeah, guys, that's going to be the deck profile. Like I said, my matchups were pretty good decks. I played against All Force round 1. I played against Seriesmon round 2. I played against Shine Greymon. Actually, Shine Greymon was round 2, Ceres was round 3, and then Omni Red was round 4. And all of those matchups were very winnable. Well, the bad matchups are Seriesmon as well as Shine Greymon. Those cards are just very, very powerful against this deck. Shine Greymon does not care about blockers, does not care about Craniumon at all, in Seriesmon. It lets your opponent rest all of your dudes, so it really just does not bode well for you. But with the level 7s I am including, I was able to play around. The Shine was just a totally unwinnable matchup for me. And like I said, I think the only reason I lost, well, there's a couple reasons I lost the red matchup. Well, for one, I'm a total idiot, so there was a point where I had Craniumon on field. I had played him the previous turn. I had literally like hard played this guy for 13, and then I think I had a Gotsumon and a Gardromon on top of it, and then he resolved Ultra S, de-digivolved everything, this would be gone, and then I was like, oh, Gotsumon dies, but no, because he has the protection from Craniumon. So that allowed my opponent to get in an extra swing when he shouldn't have been able to, and allowed, prevented me from getting an extra swing if I wanted to with the Gotsumon. So that was definitely a blunder on my part. But I do think this deck is very viable, maybe as a rogue option, just because people aren't really trying to play around it. They're not really trying to play around Blitz Greymon and Craniumon like at all. So I think this deck definitely can compete. So guys, that is going to be the list, the profile. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.